What is going on, guys? This is Miasin. So today I wanted to talk about a pretty interesting subject, which is the existence of trap decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or rather, should I say the disappearance of these decks, because it's kind of crazy how we aren't seeing too many trap decks nowadays. I mean, the only one that we are really seeing do well would be Labyrinth. Outside of that, nobody's really just topping with trap decks overall. There's a really good reason for that, by the way. It's not like people don't like trap cards. I mean, personally, I love trap cards, and I think they were good for the longest time. It's just that nowadays, they're just too slow, and I know people have been using this argument for like several years now. I think it was very invalid before. The combo decks are just getting faster and faster. People are now being able to play on turn 0, and if your trap deck needs to can only really play on turn 3 and stuff, then you're always going to be super late behind. But like I said, what about the other trap decks? Are these still, are they still in the game? Is there a way they could actually like come back in Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually do well? Or is there a way that we can actually get new trap decks other than Labyrinth and see them actually do well competitively? Well, that's a very good question, and well, first of all, let's at least dive into the existing trap decks, or at least the old ones. So the first deck that I really wanted to cover was Altergeist. So this deck was a thing in 2018 and came out at the exact same time as Gookie, if I recall correctly. I know it's pronounced Gookie, but I really don't care. So yeah, that deck was not that great, but at least back in the days, it wasn't too bad either. If you went first and you had Faker Access, you basically just won the game, because that card was insane. And you know that you won actually for a fact when you summoned Altergeist Hexia. I remember seeing like a post from Dueling Book Statistics, or at least Dueling Network, I think that was the name back then, where they showed that Altergeist Hexia had like a win rate of like 90-something% when you summoned it. And that was like the statistics of all the games. That's absolutely ridiculous. If you could actually survive past turn 3 in Altergeist, you were never losing. The grind game was insane. The question was, could you actually make it past turn 1? And there was also 3 red reboot back in the days. And back row removal was also a very good reason why trap decks were a little less good, but that's another story for another day. Basically, the best thing that the Altergeist deck could do was combine Infinite Impermanence and Altergeist Multi-Faker, which was pretty much a 2-card combo that just instantly made you win the game. The reason for that was because Multi-Faker would summon the Silquiltis on turn 0, obviously because you triggered a trap card, and then the Silquiltis could bounce back a monster, and you basically just didn't really lose anything, and your opponent got a monster effect negated, and you got to bounce back a monster for basically just free. So against the Gookie deck, you could easily interrupt them to death, and again, you would grind them out after that, and usually you would win the game. But there was a 10% chance, if I recall correctly, to draw a 3 of and another 3 of. This combo would happen once every 10 games. I do know that some people were very lucky and they drew this combination like literally every single match, which is a little sus, but you know, again, that's another story for another day. Now, for Altergeist at the current moment, are they still good? The answer is no. Unfortunately, with the new wave of support, the only thing it really did was, yeah, sure, increase the speed, but also add the amount of weaknesses that the deck has. So, for example, now it randomly loses to Nibiru for no good reason, because you're actually trying to special summon like crazy. It's not like you can really lose to Droll in a trap deck, like that's completely unrealistic. Unless your hand is like extremely sus, but that's not gonna happen too often. But the thing is, trap decks, like in 2024, are looking less and less like trap decks, and more like combo decks with purple cards in them. And again, Labyrinth is a perfect example, which is the reason why it's the only trap deck that's doing well. It can play really fast on like turn 0 by using the furniture monsters, something that yet again really reminds me of the Infinite Impermanence and Altergeist Multi-Faker combo, which is the reason why Altergeist is one of the best examples that I can cover. So yeah, Altergeist and Labyrinth are the 2 decks that could actually play super fast. And then after that we had Eldritch. That deck was like the definition of a super grindy deck where you don't really do anything that's a little too unfair right away, but the deck could play all kinds of floodgates, and once you summoned your Eldritch the Golden Lord, it was really reminiscent to summoning like a, I don't know, like a Lady of the Labyrinth with Welcome Labyrinth, but it didn't really do too much, like it didn't really apply that much pressure. It's just that you summoned like a big beefy monster, but then at least your Conquistador and Haquero started doing things, and again, you consistently accumulated advantage over time. Now, the best version of Eldritch that I do clearly remember was the Synchro version, with like Jet Synchro, Needle Fiber, Link Cross, and everything. But the issue is, every other deck of that format was also able to do that combo. So, in reality, you would think that Eldritch was a good deck or better than everything else when it wasn't really the case. It's just that the card pool was so crazy that everybody could make like multiple interruptions and actually one card VFDs, which is True King of All Calamity, which is a little stupid, obviously, but that doesn't exist anymore. So if you are looking at the trap-heavy version of Eldritch, that deck is completely obsolete nowadays. And it's sad to say, but I think the only way Eldritch can really come back is if we give them like all kinds of floodgates, but that's not gonna happen, especially after There Can Only Be One, Goes in Match, and Rivalry went to 1 in the most recent ban list. So yeah, you can keep on dreaming, my dear Eldritch brother, but yeah, maybe one day, maybe, probably not. Anyways, for Dinomorphia, I mean, that deck is a very interesting one because the main monster that you're summoning is the Rexstrom, and that is very easy to pull off with Theresia or Frenzy or Domain, 1-card combo. And that card's like a walking skill drain, really hard to out. It does have some flaws, obviously. It doesn't really lose to many hand traps. It doesn't even lose to like, I mean, yeah, it does lose to Ash, but there is a counter trap card that can negate Ash that you can easily use to negate it. So, I mean, I literally just repeated myself. But yeah, this deck going second, it's not like complete garbage because you do have some inherent board breakers. So I can understand why people would still play Dinomorphia in today's day and age. I just don't think it's really appropriate against the fire decks. They can easily beat you, and they can easily destroy the Rexstrom with a Kieran effect. So even without using any on-field effects, you can still lose the game, which is a little sad. And also, you never have a lot of life points, which is also very bad for you, especially in time, because you are always going to lose by default, and the deck does take a little long to... No, it doesn't take that long to kill, honestly. The deck isn't like super grindy because you run out of monsters really quickly. All of your trap cards that fuse, you have to use the materials from the deck. Well, I mean, Frenzy also uses one from the extra deck. But yeah, once you run out of Theresias and the other Dinomorphia dude, then you basically just no longer have anything in the deck, so you have to rely on the Soul Charge trap card in order to revive back your Dinomorphias. At least you can make some Lagias, Dolkias, etc. So it's pretty cool, but again, going second, a little problematic. It doesn't really lose to like back row removal all that much because you can just chain your trap cards, but it loses to other things, and I call this collateral damage. Like, it loses to Triple Tactic Talent, stealing the Rexstrom in case you use it on the main phase, or Super Volley, and all of that thing. So it's just, yeah, don't play that deck because it has no edge over any other deck. Paleozoic Frog, this was like one of the first extremely trap decks that I remember when I started playing the game. I mean, I started playing competitively again back in like 2014, 2015. Yeah, this was a thing in 2016. That deck was insanely good going second because and everybody feared the pressure of like set 5 pass. You were still breaking boards with 5 back row, and it was really difficult to OTK back then. And again, if you made it out of turn 1, just like every other trap deck, the advantage that you're accumulating and the amount of like toads that you're summoning eventually becomes too much, and you can easily outgrind people. And you can also outplay people, which is another appeal of the Paleozoic Frog deck, and the reason why Joshua Schmidt won a YCS and almost won a second one with this deck. I can, again, understand why everybody had like an attachment to Paleozoic and still do right now. It's a really cool deck, and I really like the style of... I mean, it's really interactive, right? Like, I activate a trap card, do you want to do something? No? Okay, then I trigger a graveyard effect. If you didn't have a quick effect, then you couldn't really do anything to stop me, and that's really nice. I mean, it really makes both players interact with each other, which is not really the case with cards, with decks like Eldritch, where you just flip a floodgate and it's like, Unga Bunga, can you play the game? No? Okay, then I win. Oh, and speaking of low brain decks, I don't really consider them trap decks or control decks. I mean, they're not control deck, but rather stun decks. Fossil Dyna, Barrier Statue Stun. This is utter, like, bullshit. I mean, we're always gonna have, like, that one player at locals or something that plays a stupid deck like this every now and then. And it'll ruin your day and probably ruin your life because the only thing it does is normal summon a monster and then activate Moon Mirror Shield and then a bunch of back row. They always have the Solemn Judgment, they always have the Dark Bribe, they always have the card to negate your things. You're never gonna win, and then they obviously always draw into Card of Demise or time rendering a Morganite, but it's also very obsolete going second. You're always losing 100% of your games. This deck is total trash, completely, and there is, unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying this, but unfortunately, there is an equivalent of the old, like, Barrow Statue deck that is still good to this day, and it's not really a trap deck, but it is a stun deck in the form of Runic Stun. So instead of having a lot of trap cards to prevent your opponent from playing, you're decking out your opponent and you're just never dying with the runic cards. And you're also drawing 2 cards every single turn with Morganite. The one of Card of Demise that they're always going to see to replenish their hand. It's a classic with all the beautiful floodgates, very fun for everyone. But yeah, these are the kind of decks that I seriously do not want to have in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's the reason why trap cards just have a really scary design, because if they're too good, then degenerate decks start abusing them. So you don't want trap cards to be too good. You don't want them to be too fast. You want them to be balanced, but trap cards by default are already kind of slow, already kind of risky. So that's the reason why I can understand if a trap card is overpowered, because it introduces the concept of high risk, high reward. But then you start having decks like Labyrinth that can easily tutor them out. So for example, Eradicator Epidemic Virus, even if the card is limited, and even if it is relatively expensive to use, in a deck like Labyrinth, you really don't care. You can easily search it out with Lady. So again, as long as these cards exist, it's not going to be very safe to have broken trap cards. And you can use trap cards right away. Like, you don't have to wait one full turn to use them, especially in tandem with the Furniture Monsters, Labyrinth Kuklok, or Arias the Labyrinth Butler. That one's a little less realistic, that happens less often. It's still a good card in the deck though, but Kuklok is the main one that people are abusing in order to just immediately use their trap card, especially that they set off of Lady. But again, the main reason why I can see Labyrinth being insanely good right now is because of the Furniture Monsters. They add so much needed speed to the deck, because again, without them, all you really have is just a bunch of trap cards, and against, again, like decks like Fire King, they really don't care. It's so easy for them to just beat every single one of your traps with Kirin, with, I don't know, SP Little Knight, Phoenix, Access Code. You'll eventually run out of interactions, and once you do, if you only have like one engine card and it gets hit by like an Ash or a Ghost Bell, you are beyond screwed. So the main theme that is recurrent when we see trap decks being good is speed, as we can actually see with Labyrinth and also Altergeist. Again, a deck that got second at Worlds, and Labyrinth, a deck that made a lot of people go to Worlds, would be the speed of trap cards. And Temple of the Kings is a card that allows you to use the trap cards that you set right away. It's not really realistic to play a card like Temple of the Kings in your trap deck. It would be very nice that every new trap deck would get their own built-in version of Temple of the Kings. So for example, Labyrinth already has it in the form of Kuklok and Arias. Altergeist, it kind of has that. There is like a Haunted Rocks or something. It's a trap card that you can use right away by discarding, like, I mean, you flip it, and then on the resolution, you have to send like an Altergeist card from the hand to the grave, and that allows you to trigger the multi-figure right away on turn 1. So there are some pretty nasty Altergeist combos that allows you to just like spam the board, and you're summoning, again, you're summoning so much that in Altergeist, you can lose to Nibiru. It is kind of crazy, but yeah, these are the two decks that I can think of that can use trap cards on turn 1. The other decks, they're just always slow. They always only play on turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, which is just not really effective against the top tier decks. Not to mention all the counters that exist to destroy every single trap deck out there. I mean, the slow ones, Evenly Matched, Duster, Lightning Storm. We keep getting more and more broken back removal out of the ban list, but we're not really getting like any new trap cards that really help them, you know, get any more speed. If anything, those decks are just losing power with less floodgates. You know, I say all the better because I really don't like these cards. They don't add any interactivity to the game. They really just make the game like even faster by making it so that if you don't have the out, you lose the game on the spot. It's not like you can say, oh, it makes the game slower and more interactive. Hell no, definitely not. Stop the cap. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts about trap decks, rather, and their future. Do you think they have potential? I want to hear your thoughts, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.